Hi there, this is Jonathan Ginsberg, and I'd like to talk to you now about a topic that is really on everybody's mind who thinks about bankruptcy, and that is, what is the effect of bankruptcy on my credit, and what can I do to restore my credit after filing bankruptcy? I think really to answer these questions, you have to first understand a little bit about how credit works, how credit reporting works. As you probably all know, there are credit bureaus out there, three main credit bureaus: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. And these companies are private companies. What they do is they gather information about your credit. They put together a file, a credit profile or a credit file, and they sell this information to creditors who pay them a lot of money to have access to this information. And the way it really works is a member of the credit bureau, somebody, a big credit card company, for example, will set out a certain profile that they're looking for to offer credit, and if you fall in that profile, then a letter will be generated, an offer for credit will be generated. If you're going to buy a car, for example, your credit profile will determine whether or not you qualify for certain levels of financing and so forth. So really this is about creating a profile of your credit worthiness. That's what credit reporting companies do. And what they use now is something called a credit score. And these credit scores are what they call algorithms. These are mathematical calculations developed by the credit bureaus or companies that work with them to determine whether or not how credit worthy you are. And obviously, good things that you make payments on things over a long period of time. For example, if you're making regular house payments and you're never late, or if you're making credit card payments and you're never late, those are good things that make your credit score go up. And if you have delinquencies, you're 30 days delinquent, you're 60 days delinquent, or you don't pay at all, it goes down. And obviously a bankruptcy is a bad thing for your credit because it means that you've turned to the court system to protect you from your creditors and you're not able to pay back your debt, or you're going into a Chapter 13 and paying them back over time. So a credit report will reflect the bankruptcy as a negative on your credit report. But it is not really the kiss of death that it once was, because you see, credit bureaus have to follow federal law, and the law that applies in this case is something called the Fair Credit Reporting Act, and it determines how long bad stuff has to remain in your credit. So generally, a delinquency, a late payment on something, a foreclosure will stay on for the maximum of 7 years. A bankruptcy can stay on for as long as 10 years, although again, some credit bureaus don't actually keep bankruptcies on for 10 years. But a bankruptcy, once it's over with, can help you kind of get that fresh start. And you have to realize also that creditors, lenders, car lenders, mortgage lenders, they're not really looking at your credit report. So you may have filed a bankruptcy, but generally no one's going to look to see, have you filed a bankruptcy? They're looking at a number, which is again your credit score. And that number will again go up or down depending on the good and the bad stuff, and obviously a bankruptcy will bring it down. But what we find is that the algorithm, the calculation that credit bureaus use, tends to discount bad stuff the further out it is. So for example, if you file bankruptcy today and you apply for credit in a month or two, that bankruptcy is pretty recent and it's going to really depress your credit score. 3 years from now, 2 years from now, that bankruptcy is now a couple years in the past, and the effect of that bankruptcy is going to be a lot less on your credit score. It's not going to hurt you as bad. This is a reason, by the way, when I tell people, should you file bankruptcy when your credit is really good? You've paid everything, you've been struggling to pay everything, but now you know you can't do it. Should you go ahead and file bankruptcy now, or should you wait and become delinquent for 3 or 4 months, then file? And my take on it is you should file before your credit gets really bad, because you're going to have a lot of good stuff on there, which doesn't go away, and you're going to have a bankruptcy, which is a bad thing. And then when the bankruptcy is all over, that good stuff will still stay on there, and the bankruptcy will be a bad stuff, but you'll probably recover a little bit more quickly. However, if you wait until you're 3, 4, 5 months behind, you file bankruptcy, yes, the bankruptcy will be on there, it's a bad thing, but all that bad history will remain. The balances will show up as zero, which again is part of the calculation, but the bad history will remain. So everything else being equal, if you realize that things are not going well and bankruptcy is an inevitable option, it's probably better to file sooner rather than later, because it'll help your credit restore faster after the bankruptcy is over. And if you think about it, Bankruptcy will actually kind of get you on that fresh start. Chapter 7, which is over in 5 months, 6 months, you can start rebuilding your credit right away. So in my opinion, Chapter 7 is a little bit easier to recover from. Chapter 13 is a 5-year plan typically, so you can't really even start to rebuild your credit for 5 years. The only exception to that is that mortgage lenders will look at your Chapter 13 payment schedule, and if you've made your Chapter 13 payments, some mortgage programs will count that as a favorable, showing that you've kept up an obligation. But again, Chapter 13 generally, you can't start to rebuild your credit until after your case is over. So everything else being equal, Chapter 7 is a better route in terms of rebuilding your credit. My clients have been telling me when I talk to them that they're able to buy a house and cars and even get credit cards within 6, 8, 10 months after filing bankruptcy. So something that credit card companies obviously don't talk about, but when you file bankruptcy, all the balances, all the thousands of dollars you owe is just wiped out. You don't owe anything anymore. So in some ways, you're a better credit risk. And I guess I put it to people like this. If you're getting ready to loan money to somebody and you look at that person's credit profile and you see that they owe $50,000 in credit card debts and they've got $25,000 in outstanding medical debt and they've got a judgment pending against them on a car repossession, would you like to loan money to that person? Well, probably not, because they're not a good credit risk. On the other hand, you've got somebody who's just come out of bankruptcy. They owe nothing. They're debt-free. They have obviously gone through some credit counseling and budget counseling, so they should have a better idea of how budgeting works. And most importantly, they can't file bankruptcy for 8 years, because under the law, once you file Chapter 7, for example, you cannot file again for 8 years. So somebody coming out of bankruptcy in many ways is a much, much better credit risk than someone who has not yet filed, but it's kind of looming. So creditors recognize this. And again, this is why people are finding, after filing bankruptcy, that 6 months, 8 months, a year, they're able to get credit because they're really a much better credit risk, especially if they take some steps to rebuild their credit. We talk to our clients about things that they can do to rebuild their credit. Obviously, keeping your job makes a big difference, getting small loans and so forth. There's a whole series of things that we talk to our clients about. But in many ways, coming out of bankruptcy, you're in much better position to improve your credit than you would be going in. And one of the things I do for my clients after a bankruptcy filing is sit down and look at the credit reports, if my client wants to do so, 4 or 5 months after discharge. And actually what I find sometimes, interestingly enough, is that their credit report contains errors. Sometimes creditors do not remove balance numbers. They'll still show $3,000, $4,000 is still owing, other kind of mistakes like that. And sometimes we're able to actually pursue an action for that. In other words, if somebody's credit report shows that there is $3,000 or $4,000 still owing, and that person has discharged that debt in bankruptcy, that could be a violation of the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act or the FCRA, Fair Credit Reporting Act. And I've had situations where I'm able to recover $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 from a creditor because that creditor did not properly report my client's credit, and my client actually gets his bankruptcy paid for and then some because of a mistake made by a creditor. Because again, these rules are fairly straightforward. Creditors are supposed to do what they're supposed to do, and if they do not remove negative items, or if they still show a balance owing even after bankruptcy, then that would be grounds to pursue some sort of an action. So that's, again, something else that we do. We're obviously a smaller firm. We call ourselves kind of a boutique bankruptcy firm. We put a lot of effort, pay a lot of attention to our clients, and those are some of the things that we do after the filing to help our clients recover, because obviously part of what we do is file bankruptcy, get rid of debt, but I think part of it is as far as the lawyering part, is to help people recover from bankruptcy as quickly as they possibly can. Hopefully we won't see them again in bankruptcy, but hopefully they'll be able to move forward with a new financial life, and their life moving forward will benefit from having gone through what I'm sure is a very difficult experience. In any case, this is Jonathan Ginsberg. If you have any questions about credit reporting and bankruptcy, I invite you to pick up the phone, call me. My number is on the website, or use the form over here that sends an email to me, and I'll be happy to discuss with you bankruptcy and credit and those type of issues, and help you make an informed decision about whether bankruptcy makes a lot of sense, or whether there are other non-bankruptcy options you should consider. So again, Jonathan Ginsberg here. I hope this has been helpful, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you.